How loud should I master my song? Well, the short answer to this question is get it to -6 or die trying or something like that. Well, it's gonna work for most of you, but actually it's one of the unanswerable mastering questions. No, honestly, I don't know how loud should you master your song, but there are nuances. I didn't name the video how loud to master a song for nothing, as it will primarily focus on preparing a track for digital distribution, specifically for streaming platforms. I need to start further back by discussing loudness measurements in brief, and then we'll move to loudness normalization, as it is still a confusing topic. So here I've got a wonderful picture in Paint. On it, you can see the signal as a black snake and its peak loudness in a red circle. The peak is a technical value that's measured at every sample, for example 44 times a second, and it's needed mostly for setting up equipment, and the best part is that we can just ignore it. Then comes the RMS or average, which is measured over a specific time interval about 300 milliseconds. The RMS has got a brother, his name is LUFS, and they are very similar, but it's a bit smarter than RMS because it uses a different calculation formula that takes into account how the human ear perceives sound. Often, LUFS and RMS are equal, but here's a catch. Your song is probably longer than 300 milliseconds, so to know the value of the whole track, you need to use LUFS integrated, which measures the average for entire track since you play it from start to an end. Now, back to streaming. If you Google the requirements for loudness levels, you will see something like -14 to -16 LUFS integrated. These values are internal. They're meant to address loudness variations across different music genres and to ensure that older songs don't play super quiet compared to the modern ones. This is a purely technical solution and has nothing to do with ending loudness wars. Also, if you've been googling or downloading top charting tracks, you may have noticed that their loudness is -6 to -8 LUFS integrated. So what's the deal? To solve the mystery, I need to introduce something called a crest factor or dynamic range. So follow along. Let's say we have a song that I've compressed to -7 LUFS. In this case, the LUFS and crest factor values are equal, meaning the difference between the loudest and softest sounds is minimal. But if I reduce the output by 7 dB, the LUFS value drops to around -14, but the dynamic range of our track remains unchanged. In that case, there will be no difference between a song at -7 LUFS and a song you upload at -14, since the first option will be lowered by the service by 7 dB, and the second will remain unchanged. So doing this is generally not advisable, unless it's academic music. When an engineer says that he wants to get a song to 6 LUFS, what he means is a crest factor. What else should you know about the crest factor? It's mostly genre specific. Why is popular music so compressed? It's because the smaller the dynamic range, the easier it is for consumer devices to play it back. An average listener in AirPods or on a Bluetooth boombox won't benefit from any extra dynamics. The more compressed song will always sound better. On the other hand, not all the music is pop or playlist Concora, so if you send your indie or pop punk song to some famous mastering studio like Abbey Road or Metropolis, they might give it back to you with readings around -10 to -13 LUFS integrated, and these mastering engineers would be justified in their choices. There is also a psychoacoustical factor. The modern music doesn't sound ready without a shitloads of compression. The digital limiters have been introduced like 30 years ago, and there have been a few generations of people grew up listening to these songs, and we should also count on that. The conclusion. You can also view these parameters like RMS, LUFS, peak as a dynamic relationships within an audio file than as just loudness. Since we're humans and not machines, our loudness perception comes from a sound pressure, which is created by a playback device. Based on this, I want to share an observation. If you cannot get your song loud enough, don't worry, because the listener actually knows how to use the volume buttons. And if your song is good enough, they will crank up the volume themselves. Think about what's good for the song first, and then about the loudness. That's all. If you have any questions or ideas for the videos, just write them down in the comments. Ciao.